Hey there, Sunbeams. Welcome back to my channel. I am feeling a little bit tipsy and a little bit chatty, and I thought now would be the perfect time to delve into my relationship with Hel a little bit more, my matron deity for a very, very long time now. So I'm really thrilled to be able to share a little bit more information with you about her. I have spoken about Hel on the channel quite a few times before, so I will leave some videos down below. There are two about my relationship with Hel, and there's one that you might find interesting about the connection between my relationship with Hel and my relationship with the Holy Mother Mary, who I also work with very closely, and how those two relationships kind of combine. But in this video, I wanted to talk not really about like the history of my relationship with Hel or any of those other dynamics, but more about the components of my relationship with her now. So what happens? Why does it happen? What is the kind of energy that is going on when it's happening? I don't want to talk about my beliefs about what I think goddess veneration is or what I think it means to commune with deity. You can find all of that in various videos on my deity playlist. This is more me chowing down on the beauty of my relationship with Hel, what I get from it, and what kinds of messages she usually does give to me, and what areas of my life she's usually seemingly most keen to help me with or direct me on. So I'm going to get quite personal in this video. It's quite an intimate snapshot of a witch's connection to her matron. So I hope that this is something that you can enjoy and come with me on this beautiful journey as I kind of lay out for you the tapestry of the various components of my relationship with her, what I do for her and with her, etc. So let's get started. Okay, let me grab my notes. What did I think about saying? Oh yeah, I wanted to start actually by telling you guys that one thing that Hel actually advised me to do this year when I did my kind of like opening reading of the year from her. She advised me to talk more about her this year and help other people figure out how to connect with deities in general. So consider this video to be an offering to her and a gesture in her honor. So yeah, that's an interesting way that this video came to be made. I did my sort of like 2024 reading here at my Hel altar right behind me the other night, and I really communed with her and I asked her questions about the various areas of life that she tends to be most eager to guide me with. And I just basically took a lot of instruction from her and a lot of guidance, and one of the pieces of guidance that came to the fore was that I should help people more with deity work and talk more about her and honor her in that way. So that's exactly what I'm doing right now. I don't know why my room looks so orange. I've got a soft light, a ring light, a lamp, and this jazzy light here, and all together I just feel like the whole thing looks a bit orange. But you know what? We're just going to go with it. That's what's happening right now, and that's okay. So the relationship that I have with Hel, my darlings, is very changeable and very flexible. There's not really that much consistency of practice when it comes to the way that I connect with her, and it's always been that way, even right back since 2011, 2012, when she first started coming into my reality. I never was really steadfast with the work that I did with her. It was always like as and when I feel, as and when she calls to me, and it's been that way ever since, right up to the present day. So there isn't kind of like a set time that I would do anything in particular. The only thing I would say is that in the past few years, I have started to look at the half moon as a fairly decent time to come in and do a devotional. So no matter what else is going on in my spiritual world, whether I'm feeling really close to her at that time or whether she's more distant, the half moon, because it's so representative of her being half flesh and half bone, is a really good time to check in and just make sure that I'm maintaining that connection. But even having said that, it's not an exact science, and it's not something that I ever would shame myself, you know, if I wasn't doing. I wouldn't worry if a half moon went by and I didn't think about it. I just find that it's a good point at which to honor her and kind of check in. But really, the relationship I have with her is far more intuitive than any scheduling or routine would be able to speak to. And that's not to say that I think that it's wrong to have a really stringent routine with your deities. I think every deity relationship is different. And that's one of the things that's so beautiful about looking at this aspect of witchcraft and spirituality, is looking at the different ways that people respond to deity work. It's just that, you know, for me and she, it doesn't work that way. It's much more free flowing. So there are certain points in my reality during the space of an average year where I'm thinking about her pretty much first thing in the morning. You know, I will go to my Hel altar instead of my couch or my main altar or my Mary altar or pretty much any other place in the world. I will go to my Hel altar first in the morning. I will drink my tea there. I will, you know, write in my Hel journal. I might pull a rune. I will just focus on her image. I'll reflect on her energy, that kind of thing. And throughout the day, I'm having daydreams about her. She's coming to mind. She might come to me in dreams. She might be something that I consider or that comes up in my readings and rituals and stuff like that. So it'll be a very close connection, and I feel guided by her pretty much on a daily basis. Other times during the average year, she will not occur to me anywhere near as much. I do not feel moved necessarily to do devotional to her or to ask her for guidance. I know that for some people, this is going to sound like totally sacrilegious for a relationship with a matron deity, you know, that you just have these big chunks of time where regular contact doesn't factor in. But again, for me and for Hel, this is the way it works. This is the way it feels right. Everything flows. Everything flows. There is no sort of consistent schedule. Whenever Hel is like not as present in my life, I never worry about that. But I do a lot of work with witches who want to talk to me about their deity connections. And there is a lot of worry about things like, you know, distance and a deity not being present for a long time. And it's more understandable with those witches because they've been working with the deity perhaps for a lot less of a long time. Hel's been in my life since 2011. So at this point, I'm not going to worry if she ducks out. I'm not going to worry if the connection isn't as strong because I've had so many instances in our relationship of her coming back in very strongly. So I kind of always assume now that it is like an open door policy, and I truly believe that I will be walking with Hel for the rest of my natural life. I cannot imagine any world where I would ever feel like our relationship was done or that I had moved on. Maybe the position in my life for her will change or whatever, and that will be interesting, and it might include some pain. I know for a lot of people it does, and I definitely want to make a video soon about what to do when the nature of your relationship with a deity changes, because I know that can be a point of anxiety. But in terms of, you know, do I ever think there'll be a future where Hel is not my matron and she's not central to my practice? No, I don't think so. And I think a lot of that for me is reinforced by the flexibility of our relationship. I think that it's actually helped me lessen my anxiety over time about the position of Hel in my practice. And nowadays, if she goes away for a while, I'm chill. But there's only really been one major time in my entire connection with her when there's definitely been a problematic, fractious energy where I really was feeling like very disconnected and concerned about that. And that was actually quite recently. It was between March 2022 and about the sort of late spring of 2023 when it started to kind of kick back in. And that was because of the part of my bereavement process that I was in, which was right at the very beginning. I'm not here to trauma dump on you. There's going to be nothing in here about my bereavement process. Believe me, if I'm going to talk about that, you will know, because I will title the video thusly. But it is a reality for me that in 2022, I lost my brother in a very tragic and unexpected way. And because the theme of death obviously was so central and so much like a daily thing that I was surviving, it did not feel at all appropriate or desirable or necessary in any world to approach Hel or speak with her. And she actually became, I don't want to say persona non grata, because I wasn't angry with her necessarily. I don't know. It's very complicated. I would say it's very, very complicated to explain the feelings that I was having. But what I will say that I definitely know for sure is that I did not want to look upon her image. I did not want to experience her energy. And I didn't feel that she was calling me to do that either. I feel like there was very much an understanding that that was not the direction that my spiritual focus was going to take. And I almost didn't really have that much control over it. Well, I didn't have any control over it. It was what it was. I drew much, much closer to the Holy Mother at that time. I drew much closer to other techniques and practices that I've been working with and looking at. I got into a few different sacred texts that I hadn't read for a long time, and I started really delving into that. Sometimes her energy would come up in those texts. For example, two of the books that I read really, really shortly after I discovered the news about my brother were the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius and The Art of War by Sun Tzu. And when I was reading both of them, I definitely got like traces of her whole vibe. And if you know anything about Hel, you will understand why those texts reminded me of her, if you know anything about those texts. So I won't need to explain that to you. If you are au fait with Hel and you know what those texts are about, you'll be able to understand the connection. But in terms of actually wanting to commune with her, talk to her, feel her presence, consider her much, I felt like it was probably very organic and understandable that I did not want to do that. And I feel that for her part, there was a stepping back. There was just an organic stepping back. So that's the only time when there's been actually a really sizable fracture in our relationship and an uncertainty about what was going to be happening going forward from that. I really would like to maybe talk in another video about that fracture and about how she started to re-enter my life. But the good news is she started to re-enter my life. You know, I never dismantled my Hel altar. I never thought about doing any of that. It wasn't as drastic as that. I was, and I still am, going through something, you know, insane. So I think that that was just a really natural thing that had to happen. And I'd be really interested to know in the comments down below, have you experienced anything similar in your reality where you were really close with a being and had been for a long time, and because of the way life was playing out, there was a natural stop in what you were doing with that deity? Did it make sense to you? Did you feel okay with it? Or was it very distressing? I would love to know. So just staying on the subject of routine for a sec. Sometimes when I speak to people about deity connection and my relationship with Hel and stuff, they ask me, well, if you don't have a routine, you know, if there's no schedule, how do you know when to commune with her, when to, you know, do devotional, when to do readings, to seek her advice, when to give offerings, that kind of stuff, you know? And I think that for me, it's really interesting because I'm going to talk a little bit more later in the video about the type of energy and the type of focus that Hel brings into my life. But I will say for the record that a lot of it is to do with like showing up, bossing up, maturity, responsibility, getting my work done, doing what the fuck it is that I say that I'm going to do. And she helps me with a lot of that. So it's interesting because you would think that if a goddess had that kind of influence on my life, she would be very, very infused by the idea of schedule, and she would, like, you know, be kind of encouraging me to come to her in this kind of very regular way. But it seems like that's an area of compromise for us because she doesn't expect that from me, and I've never had that sense that I'm bad or I'm doing something that is irresponsible or disrespectful to her by not having that sense of routine. It's almost like she gets that I'm not that kind of person. I'm just not someone that enjoys stringently scheduling things necessarily. I like categorizing things. I like planning things. I like executing things, but I don't really enjoy feeling like I'm too much of a slave to linear time. As soon as I feel like the clock face is my boss and I am its bitch, it kind of messes with me. I don't really like that. I can turn up on time for clients and I can do that kind of thing, that's fine, but I wouldn't want to put that into my life too much by choice, you know? The relationship I have with the clock face is what it is, and I don't want to add more of that really stringent, you know, time dependent planning. So she seems to be cool with that and I'm cool with that. The way that I know what to do and when to do it is really by feeling into it. And I know that that sounds like really abstract advice and maybe seems that it's not that helpful, but one thing that I will say is it takes time. If you know that you want to flow into a connection with a being, you want to flow into a connection with an energy, but you are not that fond of the idea of being like, okay, every second day I'll do this, or like every morning I'll for 30 minutes do this. If you know that you're not set up that way, you just don't really work that way, then the only way to do it is to know that you know when it's time. You can feel it, you're called to it, you're open to it, you understand it. And it's not going to be a perfect science right off the bat. There are going to be many, many times where you look back over how you've spent your time for the week or the day or whatever and think, oh shit, I should have gone to the altar. I should have, yeah, that would have been a good time to do a devotional. Oh, that's what was going on. That, you know, that goddess was coming through and I wasn't paying attention. There's going to be some rear view mirror learning, as I like to call it, but eventually you lock into this very awesome system where you just feel into what needs to happen next, and you go with it, and you feel guided towards it, and you also feel like the yearning for it, the desire for it, and it just happens, you know? I think of it a little bit the same as like the way that I write poetry, you know? I don't have a set time every week where I sit down and I work on my poetry. And by the way, if you want to read my poetry, the Instagram is down below. I've never been a person to be like, every Thursday night I sit and I work on poetry or whatever. It doesn't really happen like that. I feel this surge, and I know that I have some time and some space, and it's the instinct that that's what I want to fill it with. Sometimes it will be an overwhelming instinct that comes from really the pit of me, and I'm like, oh my God, I need to like write this out. I'm craving it, you know? Other times I'll just sort of like saddle up to it a bit and be like, maybe I'll, you know, sometimes there's not that really strong desire. There isn't really that sense of like, I've really fucking got to write. I'm on fire for writing. Sometimes it is more like, maybe I'll play around with a bit of poetry. I've got a couple of ideas in mind. Yeah. I'll give it an hour, see how I feel. And sometimes something really significant will come from it, and I realise I'm working on something that will go on to be a completed piece. And other times I'm like, I don't know what's going on there. It's all a big mess, and I just close the laptop or close the notebook, and I'm like, never mind, you know? No time writing is bad time, but I didn't really get anything too significant from it. So in both of those instances, I've followed the calling. Sometimes the calling is really overwhelming. It's so strong. And I know that that is like my destiny. I have to do that. And it's quite an intense, dramatic yearning. Other times it's like, I might see what's up. You know, it's really just, there's not a lot of passion behind it. It's just, maybe. And that's very much how I feel about work with the goddess as well. Sometimes I know and I feel it and I'm called. I feel like my heart and my chest is being pulled towards her into communion. And other times I sit and I drink my tea and I'm just like, hey, you know, should I be doing something? Or maybe I'll just sit and contemplate on how much I adore you. Okay, that's it. Now I'm going to get up and go do my shit, you know? So you really feel into it. Not everything has to be this incredible, like, seminal moment of calling and yearning. But you will find that there are those experiences and there are those more kind of casual experiences. And over time, it's gotten into a very unscheduled, very flexible sense of ongoing communion. So I think what I'll do now, my darlings, is I'll explain to you a little bit about the various actual components of practice with Hel. What do I actually do with her? You know, there are a few different things. So the first thing that I do, or the two principal things that I do more than anything else, is I ask her for guidance. I seek her energy and her wisdom, essentially, to help me with my life choices, with my actions, with scenarios that occur. And the next thing is that I'm in devotion to her. I write poetry about her. I write prayers to her. I write loving letters to her. You know, these two things are like the two main things, I think, that I do. Don't worry, I am going to talk about offerings and other stuff. Believe me, it's all coming and it's in the timestamps. But these two are the main two. So the first one, in terms of kind of like asking for guidance, usually what I will do is I will have a situation where I don't really know how I want to respond, or I'm not really sure how I feel. I'm confused about something. I feel like I need her influence, and I kind of know instinctively that it's her influence that would help. And I go to my Hel altar usually, because this will happen usually when I'm at home and I have a dedicated altar for this purpose, but it does not need to be at the altar. I've done it many times away from the altar. And I will basically sit with the question and commune with her energy. And I will just be very real about what's real. And I'll just be like, look, this is the situation. This is why I'm confused. And sometimes I will even qualify why I'm asking her. I will say, because of the role that you play and because of the things I know about you, I know you're the right energy to come to for advice on this. And I just basically lay myself open to the answer. 9 times out of 10, I'm going to be using runes or cards to be receiving the answer. I'm going to be doing a reading, basically. But the reading is not going to be a reading that I'm giving myself. It's a reading where she is in the driver's seat. And I write down or speak aloud. Most of the time it's writing it down. Sometimes it's speaking it into my phone, recording it. I record essentially the answers. And the answers I believe are channeled from her. So I'm going to the energy of Hel, the essence of Hel, the wisdom of Hel, and I am taking from that for my own understanding of what to do next. I did this just the other night when I was thinking about what I want to achieve for this year and what the focus needs to be in various areas. I wrote down some themes that I want to look at, and I laid some cards out on the altar, and I spoke to her and I received her guidance, and I wrote down in her voice what came through. So I'm writing it down as if she is instructing me, as if she is guiding me. She is telling me about my fucking self. And to be honest with you, that is very much the style with Hel a lot of the time, is she is saying to me, this is what you're missing. This is what you need to be doing. Focus on this. Do not focus on that. Give yourself this time to consider this and this and this. And it will just flow through me, and I will channel it out of me. So that's kind of what's going on there. I love to use runes, but I also love to use decks. The other night I just used a tarot deck, but I really enjoy using runes too. So it's kind of half and half. So I have my sort of ways of doing that. Every so often I've used a crystal ball as well. But for me, tarot and runes resonate most strongly when it comes to asking for guidance, you know, receiving that understanding of what it is I'm supposed to be doing or thinking or feeling, or something I'm missing about the situation. This book right here that I bought off Redbubble, that has an image of Hel on the front of it, is the new book that I use to record all of my channeled readings and advice that I receive. Sometimes there are no runes or cards involved. I just get a feeling that I'm supposed to write something down and it's from her, so I'll put it in there. I still consider that to be a very valuable piece of channeled advice, and which I wasn't, you know, I didn't specifically ask for it, but it came through to me from her, so I write it down. But most of the time in this book, it will be a question that I've asked, or a consideration, or a problem that I'm having, and I will go to the cards or the runes and I will write down what comes out, and it will be channeled advice. So that's the book that I use for that. The other main thing that I do in terms of like devotional prayers, devotional poetry, letters of devotion, that kind of thing, I also have a book for that. Is this book right here. And in this book, I really do go all out for Hel. I use all the words, I use all the command of the English language that I have in order to explain to her just how much I adore her, everything that I take from her and have learned from her, everything that I want to do in her honour, everything that she's taught me. I write ridiculously overblown love letters in this book, okay? My boyfriend is not the only person in my life who receives love letters. Yes, Hel is very much a recipient of letters of love. And I write my prayers in here. I write addresses to her. I write an address to her every Samhain, which I just think of as a long poem / dedication / renewal of commitment to her, and that will usually span several pages. The last thing that I wrote to her in here was on Saturday, 6th of January, and I entitled it, or I started it by writing, "To my darling Hel, Queen of the lowest world. This is the first letter of the year to you. May it be the first of many, as I intend to draw close to you again after the distance created by my brother's death, when your energy was too hard to accept and your image too difficult to look at." So I go for several pages writing about the disconnect that we experienced, how we came back together last year, what I would really love to do with her this year, how much she's inspired me, thanks to her, things that I've noticed lately that reminded me of her. I mean, it's really, really smushy, guys. And if you do not do this with your deity, then may I recommend that you do, especially if you're feeling some manner of distance, because this could be the thing that really takes it to that next magical place, is where you really, you know, lay out your emotions. And it doesn't need to be in writing. It can be with music. It can be with art. It can be in any way. When we make devotional pieces in our creativity that are supposed to be linked to our deep feeling for a deity, it really makes all the difference. One thing that I've done on and off for Hel when it comes to the devotional stuff that I do is I've written poetry for her and then burned it in the cauldron. The reason that I do this is because I really don't want to burn it in the cauldron, because I really think it's rather good. And the instinct came to me, you could say that it was a piece of advice from her, I guess. The instinct came to me that it's sacrificial in a way to write something beautiful and not to keep it for the egoic reason that I think it's really rather good, but to burn it as if to say, I send it to your realm. It is for you. It is for you and only you. I don't even keep it for myself. You know, this is something that I commit to you. So that is a very interesting experience. And I still do like to do that. But I also do like to have a place where I keep prayers, especially because I return to them and use them again and again. I have certain sacred words that I've written years ago that I still use to this day. So I do like to maintain a grip on the language that I use to commune with her and refer to her. But there is a lot of language that I have given to her that I've really given up to her because I have no copy of it. It is just written out and it is burned for her. So yeah, the devotional words and then the words of advice and instruction are in two separate books. And this is kind of how I've been working for a while now. And it's very, very useful to have that distinction between the two things. Whenever I receive a sign or a symbol from Hel, whenever she comes up in a dream or anything of that nature, I always record that in my devotional prayers and letters book, because I will usually write thanks to her for giving me that sign or that symbol. So this is a good way to record. If you're really confused about like how the fuck do I record all of this different stuff? Like, what is the system going to be? With my devotional kind of letters and prayers and poems book, I also can put in there a record of any symbols or signs or messages that I received from Hel, because when I write my letter of gratitude for her actually delivering that to me, it also stands as a record that it happened. And then I can go back, I can reread it, I can remember it, I can be like, oh yeah, you know, it's a record for me as well as gratitude and thanks to her. Everything I write in my devotional book, I read aloud afterwards. So I write it in my head and then I read it aloud to her at the altar or wherever I happen to be. Another component of the work that I do with Hel is visualizations. And the visualizations are usually guided by me. Sometimes they're not guided. Sometimes I just put on something from a playlist. I've got a few Hel related playlists on my Spotify and on my YouTube. Usually it's kind of like, I don't know, it sounds like satanic meditation music, some Viking type of music, you know, that kind of stuff is what really helps me dig into my relationship with her. Sometimes it's dark ambient music that I like, sometimes even minimal techno. So it depends what kind of mood I'm in, but I'll put some music on. And that will be enough to help me do a visualization. But sometimes it's going to be something that I pre-recorded. I have several pre-recorded guided meditations that I did myself using my voice, a drum, and my chimes. And that visualization helps me to go and visit her in her realm. And it really helps me to connect with the energy of Hel and bring it into me. Usually when I'm doing visualizations, that's what I'm doing. I'm not really trying to commune with her so much as I'm trying to unify with her, or in other words, kind of like see her energy and her power in myself. So it's like a form of visualizing mirror work in a way, where I go up to the psycho-spiritual mirror and I see the Hel in me. I witness where I am the goddess of the underworld, you know? So it kind of works like that. So visualization work, whether I'm using music as an accompaniment or whether I'm using one of my pre-recorded visualizations, guided visualizations, is usually about going to her realm. So I usually go down in like an elevator, all the way to the bottom of the world tree. And I go to her realm and I walk around her apple orchards and I kind of experience communion with her. I don't actually have really any desire to have in the moment experiences with her that are different from what is intended to be the visualization. Usually the visualization is just like I see her, I walk with her, I sit on her throne sometimes, I visualize that she has a throne and I sit on it and I look out over Helheim, those kinds of things. I sometimes have very dynamic, very individual, once in a lifetime experiences while I'm doing those visualizations where she will like turn to me and say something, or like something will happen that I wasn't expecting. But most of the time, the point of the visualization is not to have a dynamic experience with her that I wasn't expecting. It is more so to kind of like commune closely with her energy, to remind myself of what it is that I'm doing by working with her, what it is that I'm trying to get to or get out of myself. And it's to feel a closeness with her, essentially. Then you've got the astral work. Now, the astral work for me is much more of a wild card. I don't know what's going to happen. I go onto the astral level and I go in search of her, essentially. Sometimes she's in a place that's completely different to the icy realm at the bottom of the world tree that you would expect, right? She's nowhere near the bottom of the Yggdrasil. She's in my old workplace, or she's in my old childhood bedroom. Sometimes I become her and I am her. So there's lots of different ways it can happen on the astral level, but that's much more where I want to go and kind of like have a conversation with her that I feel would be a very sturdy, very meaningful conversation that I would come back from and record in some way and thank her for. So I tend to find that visualization and astral communion are different. They have their differences. Visualization is more rigid. It's more symbolic. It's more about taking myself there to be in presence with the energy of hell and what hell means to me. Astral work is more where I actually go to her and we have a play date. We're actually, you know, interacting in a much more literal way, I suppose. I'm laughing at the idea. Sorry, I've had a couple of drinks and I'm laughing at the idea of somebody watching this and being like, nothing of this is literal, bitch. You have lost your cranium. Hello, by the way, if you're watching this and you're like, I've no idea what any of this is about, but this is insane. Welcome. Welcome to my world. Enjoy Planet Maddox. There are playlists galore. Please feel free to roam. I think that's as much as I need to explain actually about visualizations and astral work and the kind of differences between them in a sense for me. But if you have any questions, if I haven't explained it well, please get at me down below and let me know. The other two components of my work with hell that are quite significant are devotionals and offerings. So a devotional would be something like going through the beads. I have several sets of beads that I use for hell, and repeating prayers like you would do with a rosary, except for the Norse goddess of the underworld, and really just sort of like leaning into the dedication that I have for her and the sanctity of my relationship with her. Sometimes I'm praying from a place of petition or request for comfort or request for guidance. Sometimes I'm praying from much more literally devotional space where it's more about, you know, sort of giving her adoration and praise. But whatever it is, that's usually what a devotional is. So I start with like putting on my hell oil, and then I sort of look at her image or images of her. And then I go into the emotional understanding of what she is. And then I go through the beads and I pray and I, you know, make certain statements and say certain words of power that represent that I am indeed her daughter. Not that she has any children, but I'm a dedicant of hell. So that would be a devotional. And a devotional can just be something that I do one day because I want to, but it can also be something that I plan out over a number of days if I feel like I want to come to the work a bit more. Because I work with the Holy Mother Mary, obviously sometimes I'll pray like a 9-day novena, and I've kind of taken that tradition over to the work that I do with hell, where I will sometimes pray over a number of days, the same prayers in the same way, using the same beads. So I'm kind of coming back to her, and I will usually do that on the run up to Samhain at the very least. Usually I feel like I really want to get deep with my connection with her, and that will involve a devotional that runs over a number of days. Sometimes the devotional involves other things as well, like bringing in crystals, bringing in words of power, doing a few extra steps to make it feel like there's more meat to it. But your average daily devotional that I would do would involve going through the beads, putting the oil on, you know, and spending the time really making those statements of power and those words of adoration. I'll show you the beads that I use for her most often. So all three of the sets of beads that I use to do my devotionals to hell were made for me by other witches. This, as you can see, is a rosary setup, but instead of a cross, you have a chaos star. Absolutely love that. Love that. I've used that for a long time for her. These are a set of beads that I use for her as well. The beautiful black feathers. This was the first set of beads I used to be able to do devotionals to hell. And this set as well, with the Hagalaz rune on it, is a set that I use for her. So I really just go with what feels right in that moment and what I want to use, you know. But I can use any set of beads. It's not important. If I wanted to do a devotional to hell and I was away from home and I was wearing this very necklace, I would just go through and use those beads. I'm just someone who likes to use beads to pray and devote and emote. So, you know, I want that physical feeling there. But you don't need to have that in any way. So But yeah, that's kind of like the devotional aspect. And then the offerings. So I don't actually really make any super traditional offerings to Hel. For a long time at Samhain, I used to offer an apple to Hel to represent her apple orchard. I don't do that anymore. I don't even do that. My offerings are comprised of effort and striving for excellence. Hel told me a very long time ago now that the offering that she most wants from me is that I do hard things well in her honor. You know, I think I've said this on the channel before, and I've definitely said this to a lot of my clients in the past when we've been talking about deity stuff. But I remember once a long time ago, I was communing with Hel. I was just interacting. And I remember these words came through to me really, really strongly. I want you to sweat to honor me. I want you to sweat to honor me. And I remember thinking, that is so fucking Norse. It was really a delightful moment for me, though, because at that point in my life, I had been slacking on my physical well-being. And as someone with a back injury, I cannot really afford to let my core go soft. I need to keep it strong. It's a big part of my physical health. I also really need exercise for my mental health, my mental well-being as someone that struggles with depression and other mental health issues. So it was really interesting because I had been slacking on that and I had been thinking about it and it had been bothering me. And out of nowhere, this goddess just says to me, you know what, all of this, it's all painted bread. It's lovely, whatever, but I want you to drop and give me 20. I want you to do a 2-minute plank for me. I want you to go to the gym and lift weights in my name. That's what I want from you. I want your sweat. And it really made sense to me. So ever since then, I have always dedicated my workouts to Hel. And I immediately just got up in that moment when I had that message, stopped what I was doing, grabbed my gym bag and went to the gym. And I was like, that's absolutely got me through any resistance that I had to working out. So Hel makes it very clear to me that when I do things like go to the gym, do my paperwork, tidy up, get things done on time, you know, finish what I started, do what I said I was going to do, honor my commitments, follow the path that I'm trying to set for myself, do the right thing even though I might not want to, even abstain or refrain from doing something that I would like to do, but it wouldn't be, you know, the most advisable thing, or it wouldn't be sensible or whatever. Any of those kinds of things, those usually would be things I would connect with Hel, because I'm doing them in her honor. I'm thinking that way because of her influence. And that is where she most wants me to give glory to her. You know, it's not with trinkets and bits and pieces and crystals and food or oil or any of that stuff. And I'm not saying that that stuff is wrong, you know. I love hearing about every individual deity relationship. I think it's amazing if people give traditional offerings, if people give culturally relevant offerings, if people give offerings that have been given for thousands of years. I love all that shit. Don't get me wrong, okay? I love all that. But for me, with my relationship with Hel, what she wants is my sweat, my effort, my excellence, my achievement, my prolificacy, my desire to take action rather than to procrastinate or drown in perfectionism, my willingness to do something difficult. I know it sounds weird, but when I wake up in the morning lately at this time of the year in England and it's cold as fuck, okay, this morning when I woke up, it was cold as fuck. I really wanted to stay in bed. The first words out of my mouth when I woke up were, Jesus fucking Christ, it's cold, right? I feel like getting out of bed, toughing it out, you know, really like moving around a bit, making my tea, opening my planner, thinking about what I'm going to do for the day. That is an offering. That energy of toughness, of resilience, of being duty bound and honor bound, of wanting to use my time well, of not wanting to fall into laziness, not wanting to fall into resistance. That is very much the offering that she is looking for from me. And sometimes it will be a really conscious thing. And I'll be like, I'm going to do this thing today. And it's an offering to you. I do it in honor of you. And sometimes, like this morning, it's just a simple case of like, I got out of bed. I laughed at myself for being so annoyed and crotchety because it was so cold. And I thought that was a real Hel moment. I offer that up to you, bitch. Yes. It was you that was behind that. Each being that you work with is going to have like certain themes and certain life areas that they have a particular interest in. And a lot of the time it's going to be based on the kind of deity or being that they are, right? Like the kind of qualities that they have, the kind of stories that are around them. And Hel is no different. You can definitely work with a deity that will just like get you through everything and be the one that you address everything with. That's not the case with me. I work with several different beings and spirits and saints, etc. So I suppose for me it's a little bit more it's a bit more nuanced, because there are certain things it would make more sense to take to Hel, and certain things it would make more sense to take, to example, to the Holy Mother or to Joan of Arc or whatever it might be. So for you it might be different. But I wanted to finish this video today by talking a little bit about some of the main themes, some of the main areas of my life that Hel has really, really helped me with, and the areas where she tends to turn up and be most present. So I've written a little list, okay? So definitely she shows me my strength and resilience. She's all about that. She is an exceptionally strong goddess who single-handedly rules the realm of all of the dead that didn't die in battle. Yeah, she takes on everyone. Everyone that didn't die in valor on the battlefield goes to her. And so there's a lot of strength and resilience in single-handedly running that kingdom in the icy basement of the world tree, okay? She encourages me to use her as a mirror. That's a really big thing. A lot of my work with Hel is essentially, like I said earlier, psycho-spiritual mirror work, where I'm really looking for where the energy of Hel resides in me. And she therefore really helps me with my self-belief, because she reminds me that, like, you know, you also can do this. You also are this thing. So there's a lot of that. She definitely reflects many facets of who I am. There's definitely a lot of our relationship that is about me being reminded of my history, my personality, the things I'm trying to achieve, the mistakes I've made, where I come from, the family that I come from, for example, you know, the kind of generational trauma that's involved in that, the cultures that are involved in that. All of that stuff is present with her. So that's interesting in our connection. She is definitely tough loving and definitely inspiring. She works a lot with sacred delay. This is something that I've really noticed about my connection with her over time. She really encourages me to witness the power of what is unknown. When I'm striving for an answer, when I'm striving for a result, very often Hel will come in and like hold me back spiritually and be like, wait, this is good. This time of confusion and uncertainty, and, you know, this time where you're trying to just like, you know, measure the energies and figure out what's going on, that's also part of it. Don't rush to action before you've appreciated this kind of stillness and this, you know, what appears to be frustration, but really could be something so much deeper. So sometimes when I ask her for an answer, she will reply to me with this sense of like, you're not ready, you know, this isn't the right time. And that's why she's become the goddess that I go to when I want to know whether or not to take magical action. I've done that with her so many times, especially over the past like 4 or 5 years. The amount of times that I've wanted to take some kind of magical action or ritual action, that I have gone to her first and said, is this the right time? Is this the appropriate moment? It's because she really seems to know that. And even when I want to do a reading on something and I'm feeling a bit like nervous about it, or a bit like, I don't know, am I ready to know? Is this the right time? I'll ask her. I'll be like, is this the appropriate time? And she will let me know. So there's a lot about sacred delay, a lot about the power of the unknown, and a lot about good timing, you know? She encourages me to do more than I think of doing when it's right to act. What do I mean by this? So take action rather than think about taking action or plan the taking of action. In other words, she gets me the fuck out of procrastination, guys. That's one of the main things Hel has done for me that makes her such a superb addition to my spiritual life. She tells me to do rather than think of doing, you know? She says to me, don't explain and analyze and, you know, give word to your philosophy. Embody it. Embody it right now. Show me now. Show me the cut of your jib. Show me what the fuck you've got. You know, so there is that element to her of kind of like, if you know the time is right to act, act, you know? So there is that sense of power that comes from that, and that sense of like acting in the immediacy if you know it's the right time. You know, if you're unsure, respect sacred delay. If you know that there's been all the sacred delay that there can possibly be and you need to do the thing, start the thing. She's very much a warrior in that respect and very tough in that respect. She encourages prolificacy over perfection. So she would rather see me do more than, you know, worry and fret and plan about the one thing and then take my time on that one thing. You know, she kind of encourages me to witness that when I'm in action, that is sacred. So there's a lot to do with action there. Which has been really useful for me. And I think it's a big part of what got me through the writing of my first book, Rebel Witch. She was definitely there for me through that process. For me, Hel encourages a lot of responsibility and maturity. She kind of helps me to tame and not combat, but kind of like shape and engineer the nature of my hedonistic side. So when Hel came into my life, it was at a time where I was still working full-time in an office, but I was doing the readings on the side and doing a tarot blog and that kind of thing. Hel is the being that got me to the point where I was doing enough work outside of my office job to be able to then find the bravery to switch over to being a full-time reader and spiritual counselor. So there's a lot there about responsibility, maturity, accepting what it is I want to do and owning the effort that that is going to take, not trying to go over it or around it or under it, but actually really taking on that effort and going through it, knowing that it makes me stronger, it makes me better. And she's like that with me with my career, and she's also like that with me when it comes to exercise and physical well-being. She encourages independence and sovereignty, which for anyone who knows the story of Hel is not going to be a surprise. She warns me when I need to end things. Hel is a goddess that for me is very present when something needs to die. And she really encourages me to cut something off swiftly and without doubt if it is causing pain, if it's causing harm. If I have been trying things and they're not working and something is fundamentally unfair or it's not producing an energy that I can do anything good with, then she is almost a little bit of a permission giver to me when it's time to cut off. And she will, I guess, affirm for me a suspicion that I need to cut something off. So if I think that there should be an ending of some kind, but I'm not sure, she will come in and like clarify that and be the backup that I need in that regard. She definitely encourages strong boundaries and ownership of myself and my body and my ideas and my love. There's very much a lot to her that's about knowing that I'm allowed to take up space. I'm allowed to defend the periphery of that space, and I'm allowed to decide who comes into that space. So there's been a lot of lessons from her around that. I also wrote here that she affirms my righteous anger and really helps me to figure out how I want to take action on the things I'm angry about, to make use of that indignation, you know, to make the anger sacred. And finally, I wrote that she reminds me that I'm not defined by where I come from and by my past, but by what is happening in the now. I really relate to the aspect of her that is that she's Loki's daughter. There was a lot of drama when she was born. A lot of shit went down when she was born. The whole reason that she has a realm in the basement of the World Tree is because Odin wanted to give her a job. Like, Odin definitely saw potential in her. But at the end of the day, that's Loki's daughter. So we've still got to keep her out of trouble. And she was born with a bad reputation, right? She was born being seen by the gods as a potential troublemaker or rabble-rouser. So Odin, with her two brothers, dealt with them a lot more harshly. But with Hel, actually gave her a kingdom and a job. And it's really interesting because I relate that to my story in the sense that I am who I am because of what I've achieved, because of what I've managed to do, because of what I believe, and because of my actions now. I'm always going to have a past. There's always going to be things about me that are defined by that, but I don't need to keep referring to it as the reason that I can't do something, or the reason that I'm broken in some way, or as an excuse not to fulfill my own personal destiny for me. So she kind of reminds me that you make a good thing out of the hand you've been dealt. You take your circumstances and you thrive in those circumstances. You do not keep referring back to who the fuck your father was or where the fuck you came from or any of that stuff. Anything like that that would chain me down or hold me down or make me feel that I can't do something, she reminds me to shake off the shackles of that, in a sense. For me, that's been a really important exploration. I know that for a lot of people, things like ancestor work and connecting to culture and connecting to the past is important. present. But for me, there's been a lot of difficulty in figuring out how to move on from that as well, how to define the way that my past and my upbringing, etc., has shaped me, whilst at the same time not letting it define what happens in the present and the future, right? So Hel has really helped me with that. So those are some of the main themes that come through when I'm working with her, and some of the main areas of my life where she really tends to step in and have her say. So that's what I wanted to mention there. My darlings, it's been lovely to share these thoughts and feelings and very enthusiastic musings with you. If there is anything you would like me to make a video on relating to Hel or relating to deity work in general that you feel I've not covered in other videos, or you'd like to hear from me on, please leave any requests down below. I am open to requests. I really want to make a lot more videos this year, and as I said at the beginning of this video, Hel has charged me with the task of helping you to connect with deity, and also charged me with speaking about her, so hopefully she'll be pleased with this video. I think I mentioned this before, but I will leave the playlist down below that includes all of the deity videos that I've done so far, and a few key videos obviously about Hel. If you want to have a deity reading with me to really connect with the deities that are in your life, or to figure out which deities are coming through or could be a match for you, get at me down below. I will leave the deity guidance reading there for you. And if you would like to have a witchy brainstorming session with me where we talk about your deity work and what is going on there, and anything else that you feel like you want to go over with a professional witch, then you can do that down below as well. There are lots of lovely little treats over at my store. You can come over and get booked into my schedule, and we can do some one-on-one work together. It doesn't cost the earth, but I really hope that the results you get from it will be invaluable. Okay, my darlings, very, very much love, and continue with your wondrous, wondrous deity work. Blessed be. Mwah.